Salim Hocam hoş geldiniz. Üçüncü oturumumuz. Hocam süreniz 40 dakika. Ee, Oturumlar arası boşluk çok olmadığı için süreye dikkat etmeye çalışıyoruz. Hocam başlayabilirsiniz. Teşekkür ederiz.
Ben teşekkür ederim. Hi everyone, I'd like to welcome you all to this session. Today we will be talking about fallacies in the interpretation of text matching software similarity reports. First, I'd like to mention about the outline. I'd like to provide the definition of plagiarism so that we can have a consensus on understanding the same concept here. And then I'm going to provide some different types of plagiarism incidents. And then I'm going to illustrate how we can detect plagiarism within this perspective, how we can benefit from text matching software, and what we mean by text matching software similarity reports, how to approach similarities, and what is the difference between similarity and plagiarism. I'll try to illustrate this with reference to several examples. Okay, then let me first illustrate what we understand from plagiarism. I'm going to provide you the definition by Teddy Fishman here. Probably this is the most powerful presentation of plagiarism, approaching it from different perspectives, such as, for example, Teddy Fishman here is referring plagiarism as using words, ideas, or any other work product. Be careful, we are not only talking about text here. This includes also ideas and any other work products. So what is the problem when it comes to plagiarism? There are some attributable ideas or works belonging to the other people. However, if we are plagiarizing, it means that we are not attributing the work to the original source. And we gain credit from this. If this is a student, for example, the gain or the credit here would be passing the class, or if this is an academic person, then the credit would be publishing and receiving the promotion. So thinking about plagiarism also includes ideas. We will be referring to different types of plagiarism incidents. I'm going to provide 10 different samples that I borrowed from Turnitin plagiarism spectrum here. I'm going to try to give examples from their spectrum and then relate it with the real life examples. Here in first example of coming from Turnitin, they call it as clone plagiarism, clone type of plagiarism. You see the source text on the left hand and you see the student work on the right hand. And we see a complete match between the student text and source text. You see there is only one color highlighted in red, which means that the student work is matched with another source completely, which means that the student definitely copied a text from the internet or any other available text and then submitted it to the teacher as if his or her own assignment. This is what we understand from clone type of plagiarism. In the second example, we see this time Control-C type of this copying and pasting. However, what makes it different from the previous example is, as you see, there are some very few words in the student work which are not matched with the original text. What does it mean? As you see, a huge amount of the work is matched with the original text. However, there are very few words, such as from the time, and while these are linguistic expressions, some linking devices that students edit or change altered in the assignment. However, of course, this is going to be considered as plagiarism again, because there is no attribution to the original text. I am moving to the third example. This is called as find and replace type of plagiarism. This time, you see again some few words which are not matched with the original text. However, what makes it different from the previous example, from the second example, is this time the student on purpose chooses keywords here. And the student provides some alternatives, some synonyms in order to replace these keywords in the text. However, again, of course, we won't be able to call this as paraphrase, as a successful paraphrase of the original expression. Therefore, again, this will be considered as plagiarism. The remix type is the fourth one. And here what happens, as you see, this time in the previous three examples, the matches were all coming from a single source. However, this time we see three different colors. What does it mean? It means that the student submission is matched with three other different submissions existing in the database. So what happens here? The student copies from the first text, from first source, and then writes something else, and then copies from the second source, writes something else, and makes some alterations in order to fit them together. However, of course, there is no citation to the original works, and there are no quotation marks. Therefore, again, this will be considered as plagiarism. In the fifth one, this time, the student is recycling. This is recycled plagiarism, or sometimes we also call this as self-plagiarism. It means that the student or the author is submitting one assignment for two different courses. It could be in the same year or in different years. But the issue is the submission belongs to the author. However, the author already received some credit for this attributable work. Therefore, this will also again be considered as plagiarism, although there are some alterations in the student work. If students have intention of doing this, I mean recycling any of their previous works, then they need to talk this with the lecturer and get permission in order to check. The sixth one, this time, as you see, again, there are two different types of sources, and the student mainly borrows from the first one that you see in red, and then adds something else. However, what makes this problematic is the one in the middle of the text, you see, is put into double quotation marks. However, when it comes to the first one in red, there are no quotation marks. So, and for the quoted expression, we also see some number representing in-text citation here. Therefore, nothing is problematic for the quoted expression. However, for the matches with the red one, it is completely problematic because there are no citations and there is no use of double quotation marks, which makes it again plagiarism. This time, the student is combining perfectly cited sources with copied, plagiarized expressions in the assignment. The seventh one is MeshUp, and again we see three different sources here. There is almost no alteration, very few, very little alterations with the original text. The students simply copied them from the original text and paste them into the assignment. Of course, it's going to be plagiarism again. This is called as 404 error type of plagiarism. What does it mean? It means that the student now referring to sources which do not exist, or the student on purpose provides weak information or inaccurate information in the reference list for reference entries in order to prevent the other people tracking these sources. Therefore, although we see use of quotation marks, and we see in-text citations. They are attributed to the original text. Once we check the reference entries, we understand that it is not possible to track these sources. If we cannot track it, then it means that there is something wrong. And if the student is doing this on purpose, then again, it's going to be considered as plagiarism. The ninth one is aggregator. As you see, again, there are three different sources. What happens here? You see proper citation. However, what is problematic here? There is no original work here. As you see, the student is citing the original text. However, we don't see any use of quotation marks. If you are directly quoting, if we do not change anything from the original source, we need to put this expression into the quotation marks, into double quotation marks. Otherwise, our readers will assume that this is paraphrase expression. That's what happens here. As readers, we assume that the author here paraphrased from the original text and then put them here and then edit in-text citations. However, this is not the case. They are the original verbatim expressions. What makes it problematic here? What makes it plagiarism? However, we wouldn't solve the problem by simply putting double quotation marks here. It means that here the student will be adding quotations of one quotation after each other, which means that there is no academic contribution of this paper. Therefore, please be careful about the ratio of direct quotations. Rather than over quoting from the original sources, we are expected to paraphrase expressions from the original sources and then discuss them in our paper by blending with the other sources. The last one is retweet plagiarism. Again, there is proper citation. However, what makes it problematic is very close interaction with the original wording. Again, you see the student is citing only one source here. However, once we check the type of citation here, we again assume that the student paraphrase the expression. However, once we check it with the original expression, we understand that indeed it is not paraphrased. It is directly copied. However, there are very few words altered in this copied expression. This is also called as patch writing in academic writing. It could be an indicator of academic development only for novice authors. However, we need to check the development of the student here. So what do we learn, especially from the 10th example here? It's quite important to change the structure, restructure the expressions when we are paraphrasing. And also we need to provide synonyms for all words except from terminologies. This is quite important. Okay, then, do we need to worry about plagiarism? If you're a teacher, this should be a concern for you related to your students' submissions. If you're a student, you need to think about this, because you need to avoid any plagiarism accusations in your assignments or in your publications. I asked this question to myself almost 10 years ago. I've been teaching academic writing at English Language Teaching Department, and in 2010, I asked this question whether, because I had some suspicions that my students would be plagiarizing, and I checked this at that time, 10 years ago, and I realized that at that time I had 167 students, and I realized that exactly 100 of them plagiarized in their assignments, in their final assignments that they submitted to my class, which means that 2/3 of my students were plagiarizing at that time. In 2010, I was not using any text matching software, so I did the check by using Google myself. It was quite time wasting for me. And later in 2011, I decided to use benefit from Turnitin in order to identify the matches. Did it help? As you see in the figure here, the ones that you see in light blue are indicating the incidence of plagiarism. 1 year ago in 2010, it was 100, and then it reduced to 30s. So in terms of preventing plagiarism, to some extent, it helped. Benefiting from Turnitin, to some extent, helped me prevent plagiarism. However, this was not actually what I was expecting from this implementation, because as you check the dark blue ones, you see that it was more than doubled in the next year, in the forthcoming year. Why? Students preferred not to submit assignments. Why not? Because they knew that I was using Turnitin, and if they plagiarize, then I will understand that they will be plagiarizing. So from pedagogical perspective, benefiting from Turnitin, simply using the tool did not help. So in the forthcoming years, I changed my methodology. I asked my students to do some additional tasks in order to develop their paraphrasing skills and some plagiarism avoidance strategies. I studied this and developed a writing model. And recently, as you see, there are only very few students every year, 2 or 3 students every year who plagiarize. However, with correct pedagogical applications, it is possible to prevent plagiarism. However, simply benefiting from Turnitin does not help. This is the lesson that we can get here. Okay, for detecting plagiarism, as I explained previously, we can benefit from a text matching software. But if you do not have any access to the text matching software, of course, you can yourself check on the internet on any search engine on the internet. I wouldn't suggest you to try free so-called plagiarism checkers. They are not plagiarism checkers. So-called plagiarism checkers available freely on the internet, because some of them might be misleading you. And within this perspective, I'm going to, in the further slide, I'm going to provide some citation to our testing. So why I ask you not to do this. It could be a much better option for you to do this check by using Google. And please mind, text matching software will be highlighting similarities, not plagiarism. So how does the text matching software work? Suppose, for example, if you are submitting an assignment to Turnitin, what happens? This is the submitted student assignment, and then Turnitin will be checking the assignment against its database. In Turnitin's database, there are 4 different types of repositories. What are they? One, internet repository, which means that your assignment or any student assignment will be checked against any internet sources. Secondly, it will be referring to periodicals, academic sources, because they have some connections with some publishers, and they go beyond paywalls and then check articles and some books. And thirdly, they will refer to student paper repository. What does it mean? Globally, all over the world, students are submitting and universities are using Turnitin. So they have a collection of student paper repository. If they do not find any similarities, for example, with the original work, they might find the similarity with the other students' work, because students probably will be referring to similar sources. And Finally, the fourth one will be institutional paper repository. So the students at the same institution will be collected in the same pool so that, for example, for the further year students, they won't be giving their assignments to the other students. Now, I'd like to call your attention to our misinterpretation of text matching software. Here I'm referring to Debbie's article published in Nature last year. And here Debbie is calling attention to the problem related to our perception of text matching software. Many of the text matching software, they are providing ratios. And unfortunately, academics or institutions give priority to these ratios. However, this is not the case. Ratios might give you some idea about the paper, but they are not evidence any time. We need to check every individual match within the paper in order to realize whether it is plagiarism or not. So it is impossible to detect plagiarism by using a tool. Only human beings, only academics, we can decide whether it is plagiarism or not. Of course, they will be providing some feedback whether there are any matches, and by considering these matches, we will be deciding whether it is plagiarism or not. Under European Network for Academic Integrity, we have a working group and we are testing of support tools for plagiarism detection, helping us to detect plagiarism. And here I shared the link for an article for you here. And I am going to mainly refer to our findings. These are coming from a conference presentation, one of our conference presentations. What do you see here? We actually tested the effectiveness and applicability of text matching software, 15 different text matching software on 8 different languages, including English and Turkish. And you see their coverage results. So the ones that you see at the top seem to be much better compared to the ones to the other ones. So I strongly suggest you to read our article in order to get some idea about the drawbacks and also superiorities of these tools. And simply depending on the tool will not help. This is a very important lesson for us here. Now, what do I mean by a similarity report? Okay, we are submitting, or students are submitting assignments to Turnitin or to the other text matching software, and they'll be providing similarity reports. These are showing what the student paper is matched against their repositories, highlighting the similarities. However, be careful, we never call this as plagiarism. This is a similarity report, not a plagiarism report. Suppose, for example, one of your students submitted an assignment, and as a lecturer, you see that there are 30%, considering the ratio, there is a match at 30% rate. Is this a problem? Simply depending on the number, on the ratio, we cannot answer this question, because what I'd like to tell you here is, as academics, we do expect some similarities in our papers. Why do we expect similarities? Because there will be some syntactic and lexical matches within the text, which are unavoidable. Unfortunately, text matching software, when you are reading our article, you will see that we will be referring to false positives and false negatives. Unfortunately, the syntactic or lexical information we are calling as false positives, they are unavoidably highlighted as matches in such reports. What does it mean? They might be misleading us. Suppose, for example, a student submits an assignment, writes there, Çanakkale 18 Mart University, and turn it in, will be matching it with the other paper. Is this a problem? Of course, not a problem. However, the lexical match here will be highlighted. And secondly, considering the dimensions of academic writing, what do we expect? We expect authors to cite the other sources in the literature. There will be in-text citations. There will be directly quoted expressions. There will be paraphrase expressions in which technical terminology will be remaining the same. And there will be reference entries which are exactly written in the same manner. So it means that, of course, there will be some matches. And we cannot talk about a percentage here. This is the worst thing that we can do, talking about a percentage here. Some institutions, for example, have some regulations. In order to submit the postgraduate thesis, the similarity ratio should be lower than 25%. They do not care about whether it includes plagiarized incidents, any expressions, plagiarized expressions or not, but they simply pay attention to ratios. This is unacceptable, very, very critical error, a systematic error there. Then how do we need to approach similarities? Be careful. Sometimes 0% similarity might be indicating plagiarism. This is a very important lesson for all of us. Why do I tell this? I'm going to try to explain this with reference to some examples. However, before moving to these examples, please be careful about how to interpret the ratios. If we are wrongly treat these ratios, then it means that we are not trying to prevent plagiarism. Simply, we are misusing the tools, the text matching software. Now, suppose, for example, if I ask my students to submit their assignments through Turnitin, then Turnitin will automatically allocate numbers, some similarity score indexes for each student assignment. And unfortunately, they will be relating it with some colors. I say unfortunately because these colors sometimes might be misleading people. What do I mean by misleading people? For example, there is red, 80%, for example. Okay, if it is between 75 and 100, it is red. So it is signaling something problematic. However, if it is up to 25%, Turnitin will be allocating green color here, which is problematic to my understanding, because in a way, there is implied meaning here. In a way, Turnitin is saying to the student that this is green, so it means pass. There is nothing problematic with it. However, it is not the case. Sometimes we can find plagiarism involved in student assignments, such as, for example, at 6% similarity index. So to my understanding, okay, percentages could be provided in similarity reports. However, matching them with colors makes it problematic both for the lecturers and for students. For example, after asking my students to submit their assignments, Turnitin will be putting them into ascending order by considering the ratio. Okay, what is the acceptable ratio of plagiarism? Many of my colleagues, or sometimes students, are asking this question. What is this? Please be careful, we are talking about plagiarism. If we are asking for the acceptable ratio of plagiarism, it is definitely 0. Not even a single sentence could be acceptable. So it is definitely 0. There shouldn't be any plagiarism in any text. However, if you are talking about similarity, this is something different. My suggestion, especially for if there are any teachers, for the teachers here, if you'd like to benefit from Turnitin or some other text matching software, also provide opportunities for revision assignments. So it's a very good idea to encourage your students submit revision assignments. And here in my methodology, this is the anonymous multimediated writing model that I developed almost 5 years ago, and I've been checking it since then. So what do I do here? I categorize my students into 3 groups: good students, good in writing; poor students, poor in writing; and the ones in the middle. And when it comes to submitting their first assignment, I match every student assignment with 1 student from 1 group. So they will be receiving feedback from students at different levels. And then after receiving the feedback, I encourage them to think about to be critical about the feedback and then take the action if necessary. So it, in a way, contributes to their metacognitive development, but I'm not going to focus on the work on the model. Instead, I'm going to provide some samples here before I conclude. This is my first sample. Suppose, for example, one of my students submitted the assignment, and here the ratio from the similarity index is 99%. Is this problematic? Probably there is a problem, but before I accuse my student of plagiarism, I need to make sure that by clicking to 99% here, I need to make sure where the match is coming from. If it is the student who is repeating the class, for example, and for repeating students, it could be okay to revise their previous assignments because they already failed the class. So they might be working on their previous assignments. If this is the case, it could be okay. Or if you as a teacher ask your students to submit assignments, revision assignments, however, if you did not plan this as a revision assignment, then Turnitin will match the same student with the previous submission. So this could be a technical problem. In this case, it could be okay, and you can exclude the sources, exclude the matches here. However, if this is not the case, of course, this will be considered as plagiarism. You see the second example here. Is this problematic? As you see, the student here directly quoted from the original source, and although problematic, technically problematical in-text citation, the student is citing the original or trying to cite the original source. However, there are no quotation marks. Again, we assume that as readers, this is paraphrase. However, it is not paraphrase. Therefore, we will be considering this again plagiarism. And in this example, you see 55% match that are coming from different sources, 14%, 13, 7, 5, and some others are coming. Is this problematic? I am checking the matches here, and I don't see any quotation marks. However, they are very similar to the original expressions. Again, this is problematic. I will be considering this as plagiarism. Here, the fourth sample, especially if here are postgraduate students, and if you are borrowing expressions, especially in the methodology section from the other thesis, please be careful about this. There is a term that we call as boilerplate plagiarism. You can check the explanation of this term from European Network for Academic Integrity glossary. Just type it in Google and you will find the definition. Please try to avoid boilerplate plagiarism. This is what we see here. The expressions are exactly coming from some other sources, so they should be avoided. Otherwise, it will be plagiarism as well. This time we had 30% match, and I check the matches here. I see double quotation marks, so okay, this is good. When I check the in-text citation, I see that the author provides information about the author, surname of the author, and date of publication. The only problem here is the author does not provide information about page number.
Hocam özür dilerim, 5 dakikamız var.
Evet. So this couldn't be a big problem. However, we need to encourage the author to provide page number as well. This time we see 27% match here, and I check whether it is problematic. For example, I see this match to find out the impact of. Here is such a match. Is this problematic? No, this is an expression, this is a linguistic expression. Or in ELT classes, is this problematic? No, this is not problematic either, because these are what we call as false positives. Such matches will appear in papers unavoidably, so we wouldn't consider them as plagiarism. This time we have 37% match, and what do we see here? Double quotation marks. Since there are more than 40 words, they should be presented as block quotation. Again, we don't see any page numbers. These are problematic for quotations over 40 words. We need to present them as block quotations. And this time we have 0% similarity. Is this problematic? Sometimes yes. If we check what we said previously, if this is an academic paper, the student must be referring to the other sources. What does it mean? There must be matches with the other sources coming from in-text citations, reference entries, technical terminologies. If this is 0%, the student may have an intention of using a discussing technique here, such as, for example, making a print screen of the text, and then rather than writing the text on Microsoft Word document, putting the print screen document. This could be one issue. Or sometimes students might be using similar orthographical features, for example, such as O in English alphabet, replacing it with something similar in the Greek alphabet, changing it in the text, so that the student may try to, for example, bypass algorithm of the text matching software. So if there is 0% similarity, please be suspicious. And my last examples are coming from reference entries. Of course, we are expecting similarities for the reference entries. However, we do not expect such similarities. As you see, all reference entries are coming from the same source here, which means that probably this is a copied, and especially translation plagiarism might be the concern here. Of course, there will be matches, but the matches in the reference entries are expected in this way. They should be matched with different sources existing in different sources. In this case, it wouldn't be problematic. However, for the previous one, the student simply copied it from another text. So it is highlighting a problematic situation. Okay, to conclude, what do I say? Of course, depending on the number, merely number statistics is not good. Very flawed methodology, especially for institutions. Please change your regulations. We need to check every individual match, whether it is due to plagiarism or not. This is very important. I'd like to thank you all for attending the session. I guess we don't have any time for your questions, but I'll be happy to answer your questions via email if you have. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, actually. By the way, if we have, I have only a comment. I was really impressed by the percentage of 0, because, you know, when somebody sees 0, just we think that there is no plagiarism, but actually there is, due to the fact that it should be a kind of, print screen. And also, on the other hand, the 1990 was also a good example. Thank you very much, Hocam. I would like to ask something. You know, in the reference list, when we include the bibliography, we see that there are some different colors, which indicate that the work is done from, I mean, rich context. But when I see my reference list, let's say there is one color for 3 or 4 references. But the thing is that maybe I did not take it from the one source, but the matching program just shows only one source. So I think there is no way to avoid it. Is there a sort of solution about that?
Okay. Let me say, for example, you ask one of your students submit an assignment, the student submitted the assignment, and there are 10 sources listed in the reference list.
Yeah.
If you see that 9 out of 10 sources are matched with another source, then probably this is indicating a problem. Especially think about translation plagiarism.
Mm-hmm.
But if let's say, for example, 4 out of 10, they are with the same color, of course, there will be same color matches because there are pioneer researchers. In every paper we are citing, especially considering the topic, there are important papers will be cited in every related study, for example. So we will see them. Within this perspective, we need to be very careful about use of secondary sources. And we need to be very careful about secondary source plagiarism. This is another concern. So instructors or supervisors need to be very careful about interpreting reference entries, because text matching software, for now, they are not good at detecting translation plagiarism. Only Albanian system, to some extent, they highlight. If you read our article, you will see that to some extent they will be highlighting translation plagiarism, but it's a very limited way. So in order to identify translation plagiarism, the only clue we have right now is the reference entries. It's very important.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I think there's a good question here, by the way. I just saw it. Maybe Ferhat Hocam was just going to talk about that. But Kübra Keser asked, Hocam, also after uploading our thesis, what should be done not to be matched with our own thesis like 10 years later?
There will be matches with your thesis. Once you submit it to Turnitin, for example, it will be assigned to you. You will be assigned as the author. And be careful, theses are unpublished publications. So if you'd like to produce any article, for example, from your thesis, then while you are submitting your paper to the journal, you will write into the editor that, okay, this is a study from my thesis, and the journal will be checking it by using authenticate. Be careful, authenticate is used for academic purposes by the journals. Turnitin is used for student assignments. And student assignment repository will not be taken into consideration by authenticate. However, unfortunately, not all editors are paying attention to this. There are some editors, there are some journals which get similarity reports by using Turnitin, which is unacceptable.
Hocam değerli sunumunuz için teşekkür ederiz. Katılımcıların sizlere soruları olursa sosyal medyadan ya da paylaşmış olduğunuz mail adreslerinden sizlere ulaşacaktır.
Ben teşekkür ederim.
Herkese teşekkür ederiz. Birazdan 4. oturumumuz başlayacak.